You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, people-centric leaders. Here's what I have to say is to the extreme, I rock a mic like a vandal, light it to stage and wax a chump like a candle. Yeah, we're going to talk about it today. Those of you who are the right age who just heard that are got to get Vanilla Ice is in your head, right? Diana, how many Vanilla Ice concerts have you been to in
I
your
don't
time?
even know who Vanilla Ice is. That must be pre me. I'm much too young for this.
You're much too young for Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yep.
So if I said that line, you're not thinking about the next thing?
I know. Well, let me
If
back
there
up.
was a
I am old
problem,
enough for
I'll
this.
solve it. Check out the hook.
I'm lying. I know Vanilla Ice, but the most exposure I have to Vanilla Ice was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was not his coolest moment. I'm just gonna
Whatever,
say.
that was rad. I loved it.
Oh, okay. That does tell you a little bit about the age where you were like playing around. You were like, oh, that's awesome. Vanilla Ice
I
is
thought it
there.
was
And you
so
were like,
cool. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
he though? Was he? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's with the turtles. Come on, man.
But could you do the Vanilla Ice dance? You remember the
Definitely.
Vanilla Ice, like the Ice Ice Baby dance, where he kind of does like the
Definitely.
one side and then the other side, and then he does the little spin around, and then he does the one side and then the other side and the little spin around. It wasn't hard.
No, I missed that part in pop culture.
What about you, Bethany?
I think I know of Vanilla Ice. I don't even know actually like I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I don't think I know exactly even what Diana's talking about. I think I actually remember the song the most from like a commercial about like Dentine or something like that, you know. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like some kind of like
Yeah.
gum or I don't know, something like that.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Also, Dentine, is that still a thing? I don't
That's what
remember.
I was surprised it even just came to my brain just
You just
now.
said Dentine, and I was like, Dentine? Like,
Dentine
wow.
ice. Yeah.
Dentine ice. That was a thing. I think it's still a thing. Maybe not.
I feel like we're gonna get some hate mail from the Dentine people. They're like, we are still here.
Of course.
And
Hundreds of
also
people buy our gum.
Yep.
poor Vanilla Ice, who's gonna be like, I'm still relevant.
I'm still relevant. I still tour. You can catch me at the casino down outside of Biloxi on April 2nd. I don't know where he's at. Don't write that down, anybody, but it just kind of thought, yeah, hey, he's done a great job. He's done great. So if you're listening and you're wondering, where are you guys going with this? Where are you going with this? So the topic today that we're going to bring is something we actually, or I talk about a lot because I think it's funny. And a lot of our people in our audiences are Gen X people who are executives now and running companies. And so I'll throw out this idea of vanilla ice leadership and to watch out for it. And of course, when I say vanilla ice leadership, I mean, if there was a problem, I'll solve it leadership. And the rest of the line is, and check out the hook while my DJ revolves it, in case you want to know, Diana. That's the rest of the line. Uh, and we talk about how that's not really the best thing to do. We take on things as leaders. We think it's our job to protect our people. We think that we should solve all the problems. So when problems come, we take the problems and we hoard them and we take them into our office or we put them and we say, I'm gonna do this problem. I'm gonna solve this thing. And then we come up with this great solution for the problem and we emerge from our office 2 or 3 days later and we go to everybody like we're Moses coming down from the mountain and we're going to show everybody, here's the solution to my problems. Everyone gather around. Here's the new process or new system we're going to put in to solve the problem. And then you get arms crossed. Where have you been? We have been missing you. And you get resistance. And you get resistance to things. So today we're going to talk about vanilla ice leadership, whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing. I'm kind of hinting it's not a good thing and what you can do differently. And so it's Diana, Bethany, and myself, Don Harkey, on today. So I'm going to just tell you the truth. This is the A team right here. You got the best of the best, right?
Our whole team is A team.
Oh, okay. That's
Our whole
true.
team is A team. Like
That's true.
we rock it pretty
We
hard.
all rock it. That's true. Yeah, everybody loves us. That's true. It's a great point. So Let's jump into this. So first of all, why would you give your problems to your people? What's the benefit as a leader? Whether you're on a team and you're trying to bring other people in on it, or you are a manager of a team and you're trying to protect your people, why would you give your problems to your people?
Okay, I love the question. I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to back up for a second. I'm
Great.
sorry.
I brought Diana a problem and Diana's like, I'm going to refuse to answer
I
it.
refuse to answer. I wanted to first talk about how I think that in theory, the concept of vanilla ice leadership, if you have a problem, I'll solve it, sounds really cool. Like if Don, if I came to you with a problem and you solved it for me, that would be awesome.
I
I
wouldn't just solve it. It's going to be, I'll solve it. That's how
yo,
it goes.
you'll solve it, right? Like, and then you'll rock a mic or the DJ will revolve it. I don't know, but whatever.
Seems like you do. Seems like you kind of knew the line, Diana.
You just said it. I was trying to remember it.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so I think the concept is really sound and it feels like that is being a good leader. It feels like rewarding to solve problems for your people. And so it's almost counterintuitive to say, maybe don't and maybe give the problem back. And so I just wanted to first say, like, it sounds counterintuitive to what we're talking about. Like, it doesn't feel good to say, no, I'm not going to solve your problem.
Yeah, well, and it's a really good example you brought up. So like I was coaching somebody recently who's a client of ours, and she's very much a great problem solver, very, very smart, intelligent, just all over things, and has really, really great ideas. And there were several problems that she was trying to solve, but she kept leaving her team behind. And so like and she was talking about coworkers. It wasn't even her boss or employee. She was talking about coworkers, other people. She's in management, it was other managers. And she said, like, I would keep pointing this problem out to people and I keep bringing them solutions and then they're resisting the solutions and I can't get them to do anything. And I said, well, is it because you're pushing your solutions on them? And I got to sit in one meeting where the other person said, well, I've kind of got this issue. And she's like, oh, we'll do this, and just presented it. And the other person was kind of like, whoa, why are you jumping in the middle of my stuff here? Kind of a little bit like resistant to it. And she said, I thought that as a good leader, you're supposed to bring solutions, not just problems to the table. So I'm bringing solutions, not just problems. And what I told her was, I said, I think that you should bring the solution mindsets, but sometimes having the answer doesn't mean you should just say the answer. Sometimes there's a moment. So I mean, it's why does that approach work or not work? Because we in our society we really value like, okay, you've got answers. I need answers. Bring me answers. Bring me answers. But we know from the people side of things, the psychology is if I just give you an answer, you have no ownership over the answer. And if you have no ownership of the answer, or I always tell the story of my son with the carrots when he was little, and I asked him to, hey, go get some carrots out of the refrigerator. And my brilliant, highly intelligent son couldn't find the carrots in the refrigerator, which are safety orange and very easy to find in the labeled vegetable drawer, which is clear. So you could just find him if you just blurred your eyes and looked at him, right? Why was he suddenly incredibly dumb and unable to solve the problem? And it's because I was solving the problem for him, is he knew that if you just said I couldn't find it, then I would probably get up and go find the carrots for him. I would just solve the problems for him. So that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. So again, why give our problems to our people? What does it look like? How do we do that? How do you do that without looking like you do it?
That's a great question. Because I do think that there's a little bit of an art to spinning it back to somebody. And instead of just being like, well, I don't know, man, go figure it out, right? There's a little bit of an art to be like, okay, you brought me this problem. I hear your problem. I want you to know I want you to feel heard. I want you to know you're heard. And then also, instead of just like pushing it back to them, just sort of posing, what do you think we should do about it? Right. And letting them have some input on it. And I'm sure that if they've brought you the problem, they've thought about solutions. But if you're not opening up a space for them to give those solutions and you're just solving it for them, then all of the things that they've thought about previously are out the door and they're not allowed to think about those anymore. And then they just do what you said.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's great advice. And so what happens if you just solve it? Why not just go solve it? Just fix it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, like it can feel, sometimes you know what to do and sometimes you don't know what to do. As a leader, right? Like sometimes it's like, well, I think this is the right thing to do. I think this is what would help. But I think there's also a moment where sometimes, like as a leader, you think that it should have like something has changed, or you think you have the solution and you go do it and you come back and the team's like, that's not even, no, that's like not even what we were talking. Thank you, but that's not really what we were needing. Like that's not solving the problem that we had or whatever. And so then it can create resentment for the leader who's like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to do all these things, and it can build some like resentment and bitterness. But then the other thing is, right, it doesn't create ownership for the rest of the team too, because we talk a lot about leaders going and trying to solve the problem and then kind of coming back, and well, then the team had no involvement in helping support that or bringing their ideas or building out the plan or whatever it may be. And so then it takes a lot more work to create buy-in on whatever the solution is. And so I think those are a couple of different directions where I think it just why it doesn't work.
Yeah, I love your point about sometimes you don't have the right answer, right? That's humbling, and that's a big moment. I know when I was an engineer, I wasn't a very good engineer. Like a lot of the things that I would frequently get problems, especially as a young engineer, that's like, I don't know the answer to this. Like, I don't know what to do on it. And I learned pretty quickly that like I could sit in the room and try to fake an answer and everybody could look at you and get a wrong answer. I can remember one time sitting in front of my boss in my first job in front of Ray. If you've listened to this podcast for long enough, you've probably heard me talk about Ray, my first boss. Ray was awesome. Ray was also very intimidating and incredibly smart. And I remember him asking a question one time about some problem that was going on with this pump that we had. And he asked the group if they had an answer to it. And I just felt like, well, I'm an engineer in the room. I'm supposed to have an answer. And so I like threw out something, but I was kind of making it up as I went. Like maybe it's this, and this. And he locked eyes with me and looked at me and he goes, could you explain that in more detail, exactly what you're suggesting or how that impact the problem that we're dealing with? And I looked at him and I'm like, no, I cannot. I would just felt like I needed to say something in the moment. I need to throw it out. So like, I love your point of saying like, look, we as a leader, even if you feel like you know something, the number of times like I've heard a team that we're consulting with say, we've got this problem. And I'm like, oh, we've seen this before. I know what to do. We should do this, and this. And then we open it up, but we still open it up to the team with an answer in our head. We still ask the questions and say, do you tell us what you think we could do? And they come up with a better solution than the one that I had in my head or the one that we think that we should do. I think that's a really clear point. Is one of the reasons you should not solve all the problems is because maybe you don't have all the answers to it. And then how do you build the ownership of that? So Diana, you brought up something earlier that I think is really good then. So how do you do that without sounding like a jerk? Because you could sound like a jerk, like, hey, Don, I have a problem. I'm like, yeah, you have a problem. You need a solution. Go find it, right? How do you do it without sounding awful? How do you coach
Well, I
somebody?
think that's part of why this is so complicated is because good leaders have been raised with this mindset of if you've got problems, you also bring solutions. And so, because I know when I was being brought up in the corporate world, every time I brought a problem to my old boss, she'd be like, and what is your solution? Right. Like, and so, I was kind of trained to like not go without a solution. And it is really hard to stop for a minute and be like, okay, I think I have a solution, but people do what they help to create. So if you're trying to create solutions and it's not it's not your problem, you're creating a solution for somebody else to go do, it's hard for them to go do that because they don't have any buy-in into it. So it's that art of turning it back like, okay, if you were going to solve this problem, what would you do? Or how can I help you solve this problem? What do you need from me? What barriers can I remove? What questions do you have? Like, it's almost giving them the permission, even though you don't need to give them permission, giving them permission to like think through the problem themselves.
Yeah, and I like it. I think you're distinguishing between you're not saying don't come with solutions. You
Totally.
should have some solutions in your head.
Yeah.
What you're kind of saying is you maybe don't say them.
Yeah.
Like you can have some ideas in your head. I'm taking my daughter today to the DMV to get her driver's license, right? And one of the things that I did that I think was pretty smart, and I'm proud of myself as a dad for that, could backfire here in an hour or two, whatever, but is I said, hey, I don't know what we're supposed, do you know what we're supposed to bring with to get the driver's license? And she says, no, I'm not sure. And I said, oh, well, we can't get the driver's license until we figure that out. And then she went online and she looked and she found the list of documentation, things that she's going to have to bring to get the license. And then, so then it's okay, she's got the list. And then, so then when I texted her, I said, hey, you want to go at this time? And she's like, yes. And then she said, hey, I said, hey, do you have all the stuff? Do you have all the paperwork together? Have you found all of it? And then she's messages me back. Yeah, I'll pull it together. So that's the reason I'm doing that is because then it helps her to know in the future when she has to she has to go to her license plates renewed, or she has to update insurance, or all the things. Like, I'm walking her through the process of things. Yeah, I knew how to do it because I've got experience on it. But if you don't, I mean, the secret to adulting, so to speak, is that you know to make the call or look it up and just figure it out. Like that's a secret to it. You don't have to know all the answers. You just figure it out. So I'm trying to help her to solve the problem, and that's building her up a little bit. I hope. Maybe it's going to crash and burn. I don't know. I shouldn't say crash and burn when she's about to take your driver's test.
It could though, and that's the thing is like you might show up and she doesn't have all the things that she needs, and is that a fail? Like, well, it slows down the process to getting the thing done that you need to get done, but there's a moment there, right, where it's like, oh, well, now we know. I think that's how a lot of us learn some of those adulting things, right? Is like we show up to the place and we don't have all the things, and so then we take note of that for next time. Say, oh, okay, this is what we have to do when we go through this process going forward. So I think it's still a win.
But if I take the time off, Bethany, I'm taking time off of work. I had to put it on my schedule because the DMV is not fast. It's not like we're just going to swing in there and do it. But maybe we will. Maybe we'll get lucky. I shouldn't have a negative attitude about it, right? But I'm putting some time into this. So I'm going to go pick her up, go there, and I could say like we could get all the documentation stuff, and she could miss something that she looked up. She makes a mistake. Then I could fall back and just say it would have been easier for me just to pull it up myself and make sure she had all of it.
Sure.
Is that a trap that leaders fall into? I'm kind of saying like we see people, I fall into that trap. I fall into that trap on a regular basis. Like I'll just solve it. I'll just fix it. I got it. I'll just do it for everybody.
Oh yeah.
Why not do that?
Because then you will always do it. I think that's the thing. Then it's like forever. Then Molly will call you and say, hey, Dad, can you help me do this thing? And to what end and to what point, and what happens when you're not there anymore, to be able to help her. And so even though you love, or even as a leader, right, a manager, like you may love what it feels like to help support your team and to just take things off, their plate, and to say, you know what, I've got this. Let me just do it. I know it'll be good for them. It'll make them feel good. I feel really good about doing it. But it also kind of handicaps the other person. It limits what they can do. And then when you're not there anymore, because for, different reasons, inevitably that will happen, then they don't have the skills or the knowledge they need to be able to solve those problems. And so I think that's the threat, right?
And there's this concept of learned helplessness, right? Like if you keep giving them answers, they're going to turn off their brains, and they'll keep coming to you for smaller and smaller and smaller things, to the point where it's like, how do I do my job today, boss? Where's the checklist of things you want me to do? Right. And no boss wants that. No boss wants I'm coming to you after I finish every tiny thing to ask what you want me to do next. Every boss would much prefer the employee that's like, I got it. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to do this thing. But if you continually feed them the answers, they will continue to shut down their brains and stop thinking.
Yeah. So you get a short-term time boost by solving it yourself, and a long-term commitment to a bunch of employees who are disengaged in their job and going like, I'm not going to solve things.
Yeah.
Or a lifetime of children that come back to you and say, hey, my license plate renewal is up. What do I need to bring?
What do I do again?
What do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. This is not entirely separate from some of our conversations around delegation too. Some of it feeds into each other. I was thinking about this past week, I had a coaching conversation with somebody who was, they have just like everybody on their team is on maternity leave right now. I think everybody, I mean, just like multiple people. And so she's sort of like trying to manage that and lots of people, going in and out. And anyways, and so with somebody out out from the team, I just asked like, hey, how are you doing with that? How are you managing that? Are you taking on a lot of that work in the short term? And she was really good to be like, oh, actually, no. Before this person went out on leave, like I just came to the team and said, hey, this person's going to be gone. Can we just talk about how we're going to like divide up this work in the, in the interim? And, she said like everybody just picked up things and that they said like, oh, I can do that easily, or I'm good at that. That's not a big deal for me to take. And so she's like, I really don't feel the weight of it, which is like huge. And I commended her for that, because I'm like, that's not what a lot of people do. I think a lot of managers to this point would just be like, oh, okay, like it's my employee, it's my responsibility to just take on all of that. And I will just kind of suffer through so that my team member can go do her thing and I'm not burdening the rest of the team. And then it's just a little bit crazy for a while. And to her credit, I think she did a great job of saying like, no, we figured it out and it's not that big of a deal. So
I had 2 client meetings in the last week that were very stark differences. And it's fun.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about our job is that we get to jump from company to company. So we're outside the paradigms that happen in individual teams. And sometimes the differences and things help you really learn some things that are interesting, which is why we do this podcast. So you can see the things that we get to see from time to time. But 2 different companies, both launching major software upgrades or changes, both of them doing a major software transition. And I've always said 2 things. One is you can't have a TV that's too big. You can't have a TV that's too big. And 2, there's no such thing as a smooth software transition. Like it's just always going to be very, very difficult. I saw Diana react to the TV thing. Anyway, you can't have a TV that's too big.
We disagree on that, but that's okay.
We disagree on that point. I do have a really large TV, but on the software transition, team number 1, the upper management is working through the transition and launching it, pushing it to the employees, very much so. They're not really involving a lot of people on it, and the people are like dreading it and they're hating it and they're already talking bad about it, even though it's just beginning. You can just tell it's going to be pulling teeth. It's going to be really, really hard. Company number 2, who I would argue is even more disrupted by the software changes that they have divided up into teams to handle different problems. They're investing even more time to get the team more involved, to get feedback of how they're going to run this, how they're going to integrate their services, how they're going to solve problems. And they spend a lot of time doing that, which, by the way, slows down that process a little bit. But when I was talking to them, they were like, yeah, we're implementing it. We're in the middle of it. This isn't working, but that team's solving that. And this isn't working, and that team's solving that. And this isn't working, and that team's solving that. And we really are like kind of having fun with it. Like that was the comment. Like we're crashing through this. Like we're gonna work this as a team, and it's really not been that bad. And we're still keeping up our regular workload stuff because we're just solving problems together. Those are like cultural opportunities. That's the thing that we see when we talk about problem solving. The engineer in me likes to solve problems. That's fun to solve problems and try to figure stuff out. But what I learned early in my engineering by being a bad engineer was that when you engage other people to help you solve the problems, you get this ownership, and then that ownership kicks in for the individual engagement level. But then as people work together, it also boosts alignment. So that's the other piece of being people centric. We talk about the empowerment side, but also the alignment side. And when you get the alignment side and people solve a problem together, that builds a stronger team, and that builds morale. That people feel better about things in terms of direction. So when we talk about solving a problem, that's another thing. We solve a lot of problems for our clients. What do we think about? What's fixing a problem look like? Like Diana, you talked a little bit about this when we were prepping for this of what is fixing a problem maybe versus solving a problem.
Yeah, I kind of believe that if you are feeding people information, you're fixing the problem, right? If your plumbing is leaking, it's the duct tape. I stopped the leak, right? I fixed it. but I don't think that's actually solving something. That's a short-term fix for something that's a long-term problem. So are there times that you fix something for your team that's fine? Yes. But I think the more you do that, the more you're just duct taping and band-aiding. You're not actually getting to the root of issues and solving core problems. I think you're band-aiding a bunch of stuff. And eventually the band-aids get dirty and they fall off, and then everything gets infected, and you've caused a bigger issue than, I know this got gross. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe we'd go back to plumbing and not band-aids. The duct tape causes water to stay under the plumbing, and then it rusts the pipe even more, and then you have more leaks than you had before, and you've caused a systemic problem instead of actually solving a problem. And
so how do you know if you've solved the problem?
Yeah, well, great question. I don't know, Don. How do you know if you've solved a problem?
Did you just coach me into solving the problem? Are you trying to coach me? You notice that Diana just demonstrated it. She just asked a question back. She knows the answer to that. I probably know. All three of us probably have an answer in our mind, but we're coaching each other into saying it. So if I were to say something incredibly intelligent right now, Diana, what would that be about how to solve a problem? I'm just kidding. That's a bad coaching question. That was not. Don't use that one. Don't use that one.
Don, what if you knew?
What if you knew the answer to the question?
Diana,
you work with our team and stuff to try to make sure that when we're solving problems for others, that we're doing it where it's solving a problem, not just patching a problem, right? And so what does that look like?
I think you have to take a step back and figure out where the problem is coming from. What analogy do you use about the babies in the water?
Oh, it's a weird story. Yeah, babies in the water. It's a weird story.
Moses? What?
I don't know where the story comes from, but it's a story of there's a village and they see these children floating down the river. And so the locals start to jump into the river to go save all these children. And the children just keep coming and coming and coming. And they keep trying to save them and save them and save them and save them. And they notice one guy in the village just walks away. And they're like, whoa, that guy, where's that guy going? That guy's a jerk. Why is he leaving us? Why is he not helping us save all these kids? And then the kids stop coming down the river. And so they get back in. And so he was then the guy shows back up and well, great. Thanks for showing back up. You sure didn't help us. We were all jumping in the river trying to solve the problem. And what have you been doing? And he says, I went upstream and tried to find out who was throwing these children in the water. And I stopped them from doing it, or how the children were getting in the water. So there's various versions of that story, but that's kind of it.
Such a weird story.
It is a weird story. It's not it's kind of good in terms of the analogy, but it's not anybody can be yeah, I totally see that happening. That's
totally relatable, but also makes it makes sense. It makes sense. It's a good picture.
It does kind of.
That's where you got it. That's where you stop, you pause for a minute and be like, okay, yes, we do need to get these babies that have already been dropped into the water. We got to get them out. We got to save them. But where are they coming from? Why is this happening? How do we get upstream of it? I like the upstream part. And I think that's part of what you have to do with all of the problems that are brought to you to determine, is this something that is only necessary and only needed to be, do we just need to save the baby? Or do we really actually need to go upstream and figure out where these babies are coming from and how to stop that?
Yeah. And sometimes in the moment that doesn't feel the right way to do it. If the pipe's leaking, if the children are floating down the river, whatever the example is, you feel like you have to respond really fast. I got to jump into this. But as a leader on your team, if you sit back and say well, what's causing this? I mean, sure, you have to triage it. Be let's stop the leak for a second, but let's get upstream and figure out what's causing this. Then sometimes you can get some pushback from a team. I think that's true too. I want you guys to comment on this. If you're a manager of a team and your employees bring you a problem and you say, well, that is a problem. What ideas do you have to solve that? Tell me about that. That's probably is a moment where the other person's going dang it, I came to you for an answer. Why are you making me think about that? Which probably doesn't feel good as a manager, but you're trying to get a bigger picture. I'm just wondering, is there a short-term kind of pushback as a manager maybe when we do that coaching approach? Do you feel or is it for a long-term gain? I'm thinking about the man also walking upstream and everybody judging that person, even though they were doing the right thing.
It's a good question. I mean, I think that I tend to look systematically. And so I'm probably the person that's I'm ignoring the actual problem. I'm walking away. And I think that our team knows that I do that. But I do wonder, if you didn't know I was doing that, would you think I'm dismissing you? If you didn't know that that's what was happening in my brain. But
And
I
is
don't
it
know.
important that they know?
I don't know.
I've seen some really good managers who are really savvy about it, and they just kind of like I've had employees come to me and say like, oh, I went to my boss with this big problem, da 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 da, and my boss asked me a bunch of questions, and I ended up solving it on my own, and my boss didn't really help me. And I'll sit back and go like, seems like your boss, like, how did your boss respond? Did your boss just say, get out of my office? No, the boss started asking me all these questions and made me think about it and engage me on it. And I had to solve the problem myself. And it was annoying. And I thought, your boss did help you. It doesn't matter if you know that or not. And I think the answer is it shouldn't matter, but I know that it does emotionally. Like, we're trying to acknowledge that. Like, as a leader, we want to be the hero, and the hero solves the problem. Superman doesn't show up when the bridges collapse and the train's running over it and tell everybody like, who's got a good idea? What can we do? Right now, he doesn't facilitate a solution. He just holds the bridge together and becomes the track, and it goes over the top of him. And then he flies away. He doesn't even try to get to the root cause of like, maybe we should figure out why all these buildings are collapsing and people are falling from high places that I have to keep flying in and saving. Like, maybe that's an issue. We try to be the superhero because we like to be the superhero.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can frame it really well. I think it's about how you frame it as a leader too, of like, yeah, maybe there are times where it's like you're just asking the questions and people are solving the problems and you don't make a big deal about it. But then I also think there's ways that you can, as a leader, frame it so that there's ownership and the framing it to sort of help the employee sort of see that like, hey, you actually like you're really intelligent, like you know how to do these things, that's why you're in this position, that's why, like just kind of pulling those, not to say, not as a cop out, not to maybe even say those things directly, but to help the employee feel that and know that and to sort of say like, this is our problem together, and what's worked before when these kinds of situations have come up, what has not worked in the past, what do you think the barrier is, how do who else needs to be involved in solving this problem, do you think you have, and I think it's just like asking some of those questions that lean on some of their past experience and just help them feel a part of it too. So I think that like the way that you frame it as a leader is really valuable in that, to not feel like it's like, oh, I'm just passing this problem off to you, but actually like, you have a lot of knowledge for this. Let's work through it together. Let's talk about it together, instead of saying, let me, you know what, that's a great question. Let me take that. And I'll follow up with you in one business week and I'll give you my answer, And so I think that's a big part of it. I think you can explain what you're doing a little bit, but
Yeah. So it's offering encouragement along the way and saying like, the reason I'm pushing this back to you because I know you can solve this a little bit, but then also asking questions that make you feel like they're next to you.
yeah.
That's a nuance that I think is really tricky, and it's something that's hard. Is if you know the answer, you should kind of have an idea of maybe an answer in your head and have your insights. And you can offer those insights without offering solutions by asking really smart questions. So, like in the example of like the children floating down the river, I can't believe I'm going to go back to that. But the example of the floating down the river, if I'm trying to coach somebody through a solution, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on upstream? And the people there don't have that insight. They just have the insight of I'm jumping in.
Yeah.
The question I might ask is, what do you think's going on upstream?
Yeah.
Now I'm giving you my idea. I'm not, instead of saying somebody go upstream and figure out what's causing this and stop this from happening. That's different than saying, what do you think's going on upstream? And then suddenly it'd be like, oh, that's a really good question. Maybe we should find that out and let's go up there. And then suddenly at the end of that, then the other person's like, yeah. And then I decided I needed to go upstream to figure out what was going on. And maybe they don't even recognize that the question helped get them there. So you're still supporting, you're still walking next to them. You're still offering ideas. You're just, instead of just giving the answer, you're giving questions that maybe point to that. Like, hey, have you talked? We talk a lot about supervisors who give us a call and they're having trouble with an employee. And we say, we always ask two questions. Do they know it and do they own it? And took a quick straw poll of our team. And I said, how many times does a supervisor call us and they haven't really talked to the employee about the issue? And we said probably 90% of the time. Like they have not expressed the concern to the employee yet. And so one of the things that we will ask them then is like, well, do they know it? Have you talked to them about it? Or when you've talked to them about it, what have they said? Like, we'll ask those kinds of questions back and like, well, I really haven't talked about it. Oh, okay. Well, if you brought it up to them, what do you think they would say? And maybe how could you bring it up to them? What's the best way to bring it up to them? Those are coaching questions versus where if you called us and said, we could say like, you dummy, you haven't told them yet? Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to call them. You're going to get them on the phone. You're going to tell them, hey, you're doing this, and this wrong. And this, we could do that. But now you feel that push and they're not as likely to take ownership of the action. They're not as likely to do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I was thinking there was just another example, another call that I had this past week where it was somebody who was recognizing, they're really good at recognizing when there's a problem that needs to be solved. And so they recognize those, they flag those, and they just kind of jump into the weeds of it even with the team. So they might pull the team together and they might start, but they're getting too deep into the weeds and they're trying to help like solve the immediate problem instead of being able to say, hey, let's flag this and then let's talk about the longer term change. And so that's sort of what we talked through, where it was like, feels like you're getting too deep into the weeds when you really don't need to. There's a difference between flagging the problem and saying, hey, I see an issue that needs to be solved, and then pulling the right people together, letting them kind of solve the problem, and then coming back and gut checking and asking some of those like systematic questions. So it's like, just to make sure that's not a stopgap, to say, okay, here's the initial conversation, and then what kind of questions do you need to ask the team to help them think a little bit more long term about that change, and if it's going to help sustain the change or the solution that they want to see happen, and start asking some of those questions, I think that's your role as a leader, right? To be able to say, okay, this is great, let's give them the opportunity to do this, and then let's go back and ask some of those questions to say, especially if it's not the solution that you would have come up with. So it's just saying like, oh, tell me how you were thinking about that. How is this going to help us long term? What if we add new people to the team? What if, X, Y, or Z, not to pull the team down, but just help them think a little bit longer term about helping create a systematic change versus a stopgap change. And then being willing to say, okay, great, like we've handled that. I've helped them reflect on it a little bit, and maybe nothing changed. Maybe it's not the solution I would have selected here, but my job is to help ask the right questions and help the team think about it. And then if we have to revisit it later, then like we have to revisit it later, but maybe that's okay right now.
Yeah. We had a problem this week that we were talking about in the last couple of days, that Diana saw something, Bethany saw something. Bethany, I think you saw it first and you said, hey, I'm seeing something. Here's the problem. And then Diana said, yeah, I'm kind of seeing that too. And then I said, yeah, I'm definitely seeing that too. And we all said it. And then the temptation, I'll tell you, like my personal temptation, I don't know about the two of you, my personal temptation was to start, it wasn't even a temptation. I actually did it. I sat down and started listing like, here's what we can do. Here's what we can do differently. We need to change. We could change this. We could change this. We could change this. We could start doing this. And I started to go down that road, which I don't think is a bad exercise, by the way. I don't think that's a mistake. But then the temptation would have been to go back to the team and say, maybe we should do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this to fix the problem. But instead, Bethany took the problem right back to our team and said, hey, we're observing this. First of all, do you see the same thing? And they all said, yes, we see the same thing. And second of all, and said, let's talk about it. And what can we do? And they started exploring ideas and things to solve the problem. And there were some things that were brought up in the discussion that were similar to the things that I had written down or thought about. There also were several things that they came up with that I had not thought about that were not put out there. So I think two things happened watching that discussion. Is one, I'm just observing. I just want to lean in and say it's super uncomfortable as a leader. It's super uncomfortable because it was a significant enough issue. Like there's a threat and we got to solve it. It's really important. And that's my job. And I'm going to take it over. I'm going to jump in and do this for the team. But it's less comfortable to bring it to the team. But coming from the other side of that and listening to the team do that, not only did the team come up with good solutions to it, I think the team feels better about it because they feel ownership. They feel they have control over it. They have a way to get out of that hole or to solve that problem. So that's the idea around this vanilla ice leadership and pushing back against it. If there was a problem, you all solve it. We get why you do it. I I know why I do it. I think I do it because of my ego. I think it's my ego when I do it. I think it's me jumping in and saying, I'm going to solve the problem because no one else can solve it better than I can. And I'm going to come up with the right solution. And that's my role anyway. So everybody step back and I want to be the hero and I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to save the day. I think that's why I do it. I don't think about it like that consciously, but if I'm really like getting deep into it, I think that's why I do jump in. And I think that's why a lot of us do that.
I was just going to say, when you said it, it struck me right in the heart because I was like, oh, me too. I don't think of it that way. But honestly, like it's the like, okay, I can solve this problem better than anybody else. I'm good at solving problems. I know the company, I know the issues, I know the people. It is an ego, like I can do this better than anybody else. So let me just do it. And I never ever think of it like that. I don't consciously think of it like that. But when you said that, I was like, oh, me too. That's it.
It's a humbling moment. It's a humbling moment for all of us. But if you have to, I think you have to understand that so you understand why you're doing it. Maybe it's uncomfortable to throw it back to somebody or to ask the questions a little bit. But if you do it, I'm telling you, it's super rewarding. And like we have to do it as a consultant. We have to throw it back to our clients sometimes when we have a pretty good idea of like what we think we would do, because again, one, they might come up with a better solution than what we have, but two, because they have to own it because they're the ones that are going to have to make the changes at the end of the day, which is why we take that approach.
And I was going to add, like, you and I actually trust our team. You and I like believe our team is amazing and trust them. So like if you're a manager of people that you don't trust, then you're definitely going to get sucked into this, like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to solve it thing. So maybe reflect on that a minute too.
Yeah. And another truth bomb is if you are a manager of an entire team that you don't trust, it's something you're doing.
It's not the team.
I was like, that's a whole other issue too.
It's not the team.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's a fun topic. I hope that Vanilla Ice was listening. Big fan. We love your stuff. Enjoy your music. Probably shouldn't have sampled Queen as blatantly as you did without getting permission. Probably should have got permission on that. But look, you paid for it. You did your time. So for the crime and all that stuff. And now it's an iconic song. And thanks for putting it out there so that we could use that as an example. Because if there was a problem, let your people solve it. Let them solve it, because then they'll take ownership and you'll get alignment and you'll get a culture boost for it. And it'll humble you up as a leader and you'll probably get better solutions anyway.
You can still rock a mic and the DJ can still resolve it, but you got to bring it to the team first.
Yeah. That was, I'm so proud of what you just did, Diana. I'm speechless.
Thank you. I finally have reached Don's level and he's very proud right now.
That's good. I feel like I need to go see if I can find some like Dentine ice, see if it's still out there. Need some fresh.
Yeah. And thanks for reviving that brand. I'm sure it's still out there. Also, the Dentine people will call us. This one might get some more calls from some companies, but that's okay. We hope it was really good advice.
Maybe they would sponsor us.
Yeah. I mean, actually, they should probably pay us because we just kind of did it, right? Because I remember when that came out.
Remembers they're going to Google. I bet they're going to get some hits on their website.
They're going to be like, "What is this? How did this suddenly just jump up? How are we suddenly selling more Dentine ice?" It's delicious. It is good. I will say, when somebody's got Dentine ice, I will accept it, because sometimes fresh breath is a key to really good coaching, because what you don't want is your breath to get between you and results.
That's right.
That was good. That was a free ad right there. We just did it. Maybe they can come back and see us. Or send us a pack. Everybody. All right. Now, I'm having trouble getting our way out of this episode. So I'm just going to do it. We're just going to walk out. We're just going to crash the door, open the door, and say thanks for joining us for this episode of People Centric Podcast. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.